Hi, thank you for joining me. Today I'd like to talk to you about cutouts. These cutouts can be used for any type of artwork that you choose. I'm covering it right now for actually making greeting cards, and this time we're using colors or patterns for Christmas. You can use these for any type of holiday, birthday, special day. So let's get started. What you'll need is something to cut with, an X-Acto knife or a pair of scissors or a fancy cutter, and I have this circular cutter which I covered in one of my other videos. And you'll also need something to cut out, and that can be any type of paper: tissue paper, wrapping paper. This is an art construction paper, and this is some kind of paper that was used to wrap something with. It was purchased from the store, but I thought it was kind of nice because it's two-sided, silver on one side, purple on the other. I think sometimes you get these for holidays like Valentine's Day, any of the other holidays. I think they wrap, some of them wrap the spiral hams in those. And yes, you can reuse them because the meat itself is sealed in a thick plastic. Nothing touches that. So let's begin. The circular one, and it's so much easier to use these patterns with them. Excuse me, because of course the edge work comes out much cleaner. Move it to the side, the edge rather, so that it's not covering the entire piece. I'm not going to cut the circle out in the middle, and that way we can reuse some of that other paper. So on this thing we just press down and give it a few passes, and it cuts it out. Nice small circle. You can make those as large and cut out as many as you need, and make those as large as you like. With these tissue papers, they're a little more delicate, so I'll just open this up. And again, I kind of work to the edge of the paper. You kind of work to the edge of the paper. I can cut a piece off, but I'm not. I'm going to keep the rest of that as large as it wants to be, and that way it can be used for something else. You can find one of the circles. I'll come here, the tissue paper, and see what happens to it. If you cut the tissue paper without a backing paper, it tends to tear because the tissue paper is very delicate. So we remedy that by placing just a plain piece of copy paper underneath the tissue paper before trying to cut it. And in doing so, sometimes it's difficult to find these little openings. In doing so, you create a stronger piece. The tissue paper is very delicate. And I'm not pressing down as hard for this thing. Of course, I didn't press down hard enough, so. Some tissue papers are more delicate than others. I was able to use a different type of paper and got a really good clean cut. So this one does not work so well with this cutter because it is too delicate, and so it would have to be cut by hand. This paper, however, is a little stiffer, and I'll show you on that one. This paper's quite a bit stiffer, and I was able to just come in and cut that out with no problem. So it depends on the thickness of the paper, and the thinner papers, tissue papers that is. The tissue papers are quite delicate, so you kind of want to watch that with those. And let's try this thing to see how well it cuts. I'm going to rip a piece off because it's a little too big for me to be dealing with, actually handling. And again, I'm just cutting circles right now, but you can cut any shape because I thought this color would be really nice to make silver bells out of it, since one side is silver rather. May sound kind of corny, but that's the song. And that cuts a nice one there. This little piece here can be cut off with the scissors because that's not quite so good. That made the circle kind of off, so you can clean that up with scissors. I tell you, these little shape cutters that you use to make these circles in different shapes are really good, but sometimes they have a little drawback if you're not able to just cut so well with them. Now, Christmas wrapping paper. Remember, any kind of paper will do, but this is a Christmas wrapping paper. I thought it looked kind of cute. Now, these can be cut out so that you get some of this red and white polka dotted border that's around it, or you can cut it close to the edge where you have this black outline. And so, or you can cut out the individual shapes. So I'm going to cut close to the black outline. Which didn't work so well on that one side because why? I just cut the black outline itself away. I thought those polka dots were cute, but here I cut out the outline, the black outline itself. On something like this, it would be fine. And I want to show you why, because in doing the wrapping paper, sometimes you cut into a piece. Like this edge was cut into, so you see there's some, not sure if you can see it. There's some of the polka dotted edge here. The black stripe is missing here, and the black stripe is missing there also. So in these cases, you would just cut within the black stripe and use that picture frame. The color on these vary, and they're different than the paper. And I'll show you, because normally you see this as white and you think, oh, white. But when you put that, this is really a bright white, and that won't match so well. So you may want to use this with a different type of paper. And then that means like on this, which is a cream color paper, or even on that background, which is a different color paper. And and you can use a different color cardstock, which that would go really well, but you would not want this red and white up against that red. The other thing I wanted to show you was on a regular cutout, you can actually cut this out itself. If you didn't want to fight with that white background that's on there, or off-white background, you just want the object itself. And then I would say cut close to the edge, and it's okay if you cut into, it on some spots, because you don't want to see this white on the background. These two edges aren't the same. I would come in and cut out this whole present thing, or just cut out the penguin itself. But I just want to give you a quick look at what it would look like. And this little piece here I will cut off. Yes, I'm cleaning up those edges. You don't have to cut all this white off, because what I tell you, what I would do is, after I glued it down, I would use some type of glitter that gives it a totally different look than the background on there. So this is kind of cute, and you can really arrange these however you wanna, on whatever type of surface that you'd like. The other thing is, this is another cutout, which I started with the X-Acto knife. You can do these with scissors, and cutting these out with scissors, I would recommend cutting all the way around first. And then coming in and carefully cutting up to the edge there. So this can be done. It just takes more time to cut this out. Something out like this with the scissors than it does with an X-Acto knife. And again, on here you can cut into the edge a little bit, or you can leave some of the background. If you leave a very small amount of the background, you will be coming back over it with glitter. The edges, you would actually outline that with some glitter. Glue pens are much better at that than putting down glue and then sprinkling glitter. It's less messy, but if you want to, you can. Now the trick I want to show you with making these cutouts with an X-Acto knife is you want to use the X-Acto knife from the inside of the petal out to the edge. If you go in the opposite direction, you have a chance of tearing the tips off, and you want to keep the tips intact. The other thing is, turn your paper to make it easier when you're cutting with these X-Acto knives. And I found that if you come in and cut just the right edge or the left edge at one time, it makes it easier, because it's almost like you're getting in practice. So you would just cut the right edges, right edges, right edges. Turn your paper if you like and cut the right edges. Then come back and cut the left edges. Instead of going right then left, and sometimes doing that kind of throws your mind off and your cutting edge off. So when you do that, it makes it faster. Put the cap back on that. It makes it much faster to cut these. So once you cut out the ones that you want, in cutting those, they don't just drop out, because sometimes you don't overlap the edges so that you don't rip off what you want. Then you just come back in excuse me, and pop these out. I would also recommend, as you see when I did this, vary the size. I don't want all large ones. You could, if that's what you're going for. You can cut out all large ones, all small ones, or you can vary the shapes. Also, as you saw when I first started cutting, let me pull this one out. When I first started cutting, that I missed an edge. I went to one that was cut off. When you're using these type of cutoffs, you're going to overlap them, and so sometimes you can cut out ones that are near the edge and still use them. So this one I did not finish, and I will come in here and finish this. Be careful, these X-Acto blades are very sharp. And I can see all spots that I missed. And this makes it so much quicker and easier to make your cutouts. Also, make sure you're cutting on a nice surface that you don't want, on a surface that you don't mind cutting into. If you have one of these pads that you can use for cutting, it makes it much easier. This one is self-healing, but I don't know how much healing it does because I see the cuts on it. But there you have it. Those are all different sizes. This edge won't matter. Also, for the cutouts, you can make any shapes, any types of shapes that you'd like. You don't have to stick to these shapes. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.